Hi, I'm David Martelli, and this is another Martelli Minute. And today we will be discussing the Elite Workstation. Now, typically we keep our videos under about a minute or so, but today is going to be a special edition video because this is one of our most purchased product, and we want to take a little bit longer to go over each feature and benefit so you, the viewer at home, can see what we do here at Martelli's. First things you want to notice is the size of the table. The size of the table is 35 by 72. Now, the table is just like the rest of our workstation. It's made out of HDPE, which stands for high density polyethylene. It's just a real fancy word for plastic. Now, the key to this is when you have plastic and you make things out of plastic, they inject air into it. The more air they inject into the plastic, the cheaper it becomes. It's really important to know that with our workstation, we have very minimal air injected into it. So we still have the strength of a really strong plastic, but it's also really lightweight. The table itself, again, is 35 by 72, and then we have our cutting mat. Our cutting mat is 30 by 60. It has 15 inches of lift. Now, we've seen this with all the rest of our workstations. Now, I'm going to be quiet just for a second because I want you to hear something. You can hear it. That's electric actuators. That is not hydraulic. The reason why it's good to have electric is because when you have electric actuators, you know that you'll never have hydraulic fluid and it will never leak on your floor. Again, this being plastic, it's super lightweight, so you can move it with just one hand, and you can typically move it around your shop, and it's easy to work with. Now, we talked about sewing tables. Everybody loves the idea when you sew to be able to tilt your machine, because tilting your machine takes all the pressure off your shoulders. So keep in mind that we can do this with our Elite Workstation as well. So it has independent suspension. What I mean by that is the actuators are independent of one another, so you can put the table on any angle, and then once you have it on the perfect angle for yourself, you can raise and lower both sides at the same time. Now, as you can see, I've already put the table at a tilt. Now, when I'm doing my sewing, everybody loves to have those machines that tilt up. So we're just gonna come out of the picture here real quick. I'm gonna put my sewing machine right here. Now, I'm gonna show you some uses that you can use this and how you can use it when you're sewing. Now, we love to sew ergonomically. And typically, we've never been able to do that because the person that taught you how to sew or taught you how to quilt, the person that taught them, so I'm talking about 2 generations removed, they were taught on a treadle machine. A treadle machine has a fixed pedal and you can't move it. The great thing about the modern sewing machines is they're very lightweight and they have a foot pedal that you can push to make the needle go. So what I do is I take my machine, I turn my machine sideways just a little bit, then I sit on the side of the sewing machine. Now, the sewing machine has feed dogs and it's going to advance your fabric, so it's always going to keep your fabric straight. So just like rotary cutting, I put my shoulder right in line with that needle so everything's ergonomic. You can see I tilted the table. By tilting the table, it's taken all the pressure off my shoulders, and now it's much easier to sew. So now you can use your Elite Workstation not only as a cutting surface, but also as a sewing table as well. Now, a couple of cool things that I really want to teach you. And I love this. So anybody that's ever done binding, they actually hate to do binding. And one of the reasons why they hate to do binding is because when you're trying to bind your quilt, you have to take the weight of your quilt, your actual quilt, into consideration. So what I do is I take my sewing machine and I'll set it right in the middle of my table, just like this, right? And because I'm trying to bind a huge quilt, what this does, it takes all the weight off your quilt. So you put the sewing machine right in the middle of your table, just like this, and then you're gonna raise it to the height of your hip, or maybe a little bit past your hip. So now when you're binding your quilt, your actual Elite Workstation will hold half your quilt on this side, and as you're putting the binding on, it will also hold your quilt as it comes through. So there's no more dragging on the sewing machine and pulling on your needle. So this is perfect for any type of binding. And last but not least, when we're cutting, we all know that we do a lot of cutting. And when we do a lot of cutting, the further you reach, the more you veer off. The more you reach, also, the more your back and your shoulders kill you. So what we do is we put our table at an angle. We put it at the perfect angle for us. And once we have it at the perfect angle for us, again, we can raise and lower both sides at the same time. So now when I'm cutting, I can cut almost twice as far by only going half the distance. The more uphill you cut, the less distance you have to travel when you're cutting. So that's some of the great features and benefits that you can use with your Elite Workstation. Go now to get yours at martellinotions.com.